Who makes it into a Premier League underrated 11? I've created a 4-4-2. It's 100% spot on. Every single position filled with the most underrated players in the Premier League. Starting off in goal, I have to go with Jordan Pickford. I think he's underrated in a number of aspects. Obviously, Evertonian fans, England fans are going to know everything about the qualities of Jordan Pickford. But I think sometimes he's underrated because that big offer hasn't come in. I mean, Chelsea have cycled through 8 or 9 different keepers since Jordan Pickford's been a good enough keeper to play for a Chelsea level club, or at least a club trying to go into the direction that Chelsea are trying to go. It reminds me a little bit of Shea Given at Newcastle United. I think he's top 5 appearance holders ever at Newcastle United. Stayed there a very long time. And he was always top 5 keepers in the Premier League for, well, not always, but in and around the kind of top 5, top 6 keepers in the Premier League for 11 years, 12 years? And I think Pickford could end up staying at Everton for a very long time. I think he's helped them stay in the Premier League twice. He's been England's most important goalkeeper since Gordon Banks. He's got a better record as an England keeper than Shilton, David James, David Seaman, and so many others. And he's still playing for a club that are battling relegation every year. He's better than Onana at Man United. I think he's better than David Raya. I think he's better than Emi Martinez. I do. And I think he's very, very slept on. Right back, it has to be Rico Lewis. Now, I know this is maybe a bit of a cop-out. Maybe it seems a little bit biased or whatever, but I don't think people understand Rico Lewis's importance to Man City's success, particularly in the treble campaign. Rico Lewis was instrumental at a time where City were chasing, obviously winning the Premier League, trying to win the Champions League for the first time. There was a period of time, it would have been in 2022, where City were a little bit flat, a little bit devoid of ideas. The midfield was very, very slow. Rodri was still fantastic, but the kind of De Bruyne, I think De Bruyne was missing a few games. Ilkay Gundogan wasn't quite at that form. And Rico Lewis actually played, I think he played twice back-to-back games against Chelsea, I think it was. One against Graham Potter in midfield, I think, in the FA Cup. And he got on the ball incredibly well. It was so refreshing how quickly he moved the ball. Very similar to Philip Lahm. Not many football fans had seen it. And he galvanised City. He got City moving the ball quicker. Sometimes we talk about leadership in football. Putting in a big tackle, winning a big header, scoring a penalty, holding your nerve in those kind of ways. But leadership, I see it from Rico Lewis. He leads the side through pace on the ball. He gets the side ticking over and over. He never loses it. Against West Ham last week, absolutely incredible of how quickly a ball gets fired into him and he first time touches it off to someone else. He moves it so quickly. It's brilliant. I don't think people underestimate how good this kid is. Back-to-back Premier League titles, a Champions League medal as well. I think he's got the ceiling as high as any young defender in world football, and people sleep on him. I don't know why. Alongside him at centre-back, Konate. I think the way this guy came in, obviously replaced Quansah at Ipswich in the first game of the Arne Slot era at Liverpool. He's an absolute unit. He's huge. He's good on the ball. I think he brings a lot of leadership. And when you talk about the A and the B side of a centre-back partnership, I think Konate could end up being the A side when Van Dijk leaves/retires at Liverpool. And I think he's got more than enough to be that kind of A side world-class defender. I think injuries have probably slowed down that a little bit in terms of that kind of trajectory being consistent, and we see it. But he's got so much time. He's still such a young centre-back. I think he's got as good a ceiling as anyone at Arsenal, Gabriel Saliba, anyone at City, and anyone further afield as well. I have to throw in Pau Torres. Maybe there'll be Villa fans watching this saying, oh, well, no one underrates him at Villa. These are hard videos to do. I think the overrated videos are easier. Underrated videos are hard because every football fan knows these little secrets, little gems. I just think in the wider context of football fans, we don't talk about how well Pau Torres has adjusted to the physicality of the Premier League. He was considered, I think, diminutive by footballing standards in the Premier League for a centre-back. Slim. I think that's fair to say. And that people could get at him and bully him. I think his first game against Newcastle United, I think got bullied a little bit. Let's be real. Since then, he hasn't really put a foot wrong. He's been absolutely exceptional. His quality on the ball is right at the top of European football for centre-backs. His distribution is fantastic. And I think he's a very smart footballer. He reminds me a lot of Laporte in terms of that kind of smart, silky centre-back. I like him a lot. Left-back, I have to put in Emerson at West Ham United. I think there's a few West Ham players that get slept on as well. I think Susek's another one of them. Maybe Paquetá as well. And I look at Emerson. He won the Champions League with Chelsea. I know he's a bit of a squad player, but actually West Ham have got a very, very good left-back who's right at their level, pushing that level higher. I think he's good enough to play a little bit above where West Ham are. I think he's probably a Champions League level left-back in terms of his quality on the ball, his athleticism, his experience at the highest level. And he's playing for West Ham. He's very happy. He's getting a lot of football, and I think he's just underrated. I think he's a good, solid left-back. In midfield, I'm going to go Caicedo for Chelsea. Every time I've watched him for the last 6 months, look, don't get me wrong, I slagged him off when he first went to Chelsea. The money's outrageous. It's not his fault. The story of his come up in the last couple of years, the speed of which he went to Brighton, only played for, 1 season, 2 seasons, basically 1 full season, went to Chelsea for £100 million and kind of changed his life and kind of guaranteed his success, his kind of financial security for the rest of his life. It's an amazing story. And you have a player there that is incredibly industrious, incredibly fit and athletic. He's smart on the ball when he wants to be. I think when he's asked to do millions of things at once, it doesn't work. But Caicedo is a little bit underrated. I think he's putting in some of the highest amount of tackles last season in the Premier League. I think he's a good midfielder. I think he's one of the best of his kind in the Premier League. And the money just takes him to that level where it's a little bit unfair on him. I think he gets a little bit slept on. And next to him, Alexis McAllister. I don't think we talk about Alexis McAllister as being one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. I know Liverpool fans are going to talk about how good he is and how much he's loved. But he's gone to a massive club. He's gone for a relatively big fee. And he doesn't get talked about for how much quality he brings on the ball, the amount of chances he creates through his passing. Big goals as well last season for Jurgen Klopp. And I think Liverpool's midfield revolves around him. I think we can debate Gravenberch, Endo, other DMs that I think Liverpool will need down the line. But McAllister, for me, is just been this mainstay in the Liverpool midfield. Even Szoboszlai, I think there's an argument, can come out of the side far easier. I think it's far easier to bench Szoboszlai based on form in the last 6 to 9 months. I think he's a little bit more of a flair player, a little bit more volatile. But McAllister's been this steady 7 or 8 out of 10. I think he gets stepped on by football fans massively. I'm going to be controversial. I think Jack Grealish is underrated. I'm going to be completely honest. Again, it's the money. If you talk about the money, then maybe £100 million is a stretch. If he leaves next summer, then it feels like a short amount of time for Jack Grealish. If he stays for 5 years and wins 5 Premier League titles, it's amazing money. I cannot stress how good this guy can be. I've actually seen it already this season when he came in and played left wing against West Ham. His link-up play was fantastic. If he can add a little bit more goals and assists, of course, he's going to need that. Then for PR as well, because I don't think his game necessarily revolves around goals and assists. It never did at Aston Villa. And I think we kid ourselves that he was a 20-goal a season midfielder from Aston Villa. He was never that even at Aston Villa. And at Man City, his game has improved. His fitness has improved. He's playing at the highest level and competing. And I think it's just unfair how we criticise him in the football world. I think he's been a massive part of City's success. Yes, it diminished last season. He didn't get as many minutes as he would have liked. Missed out on England, of course. But I know I go back to the treble-winning campaign, but if I see it at that level where he was the first name on the team sheet in the Champions League final against Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, I'm fair enough to say 12 months later, after a season, that isn't too far removed. I still think he's got so much quality. He's such a smart footballer. He brings other footballers into play. I think he's completely underrated. I'm going to go Eze. I think this is the most ridiculous shout on some level because football fans rate him massively. But I'm talking about maybe other aspects of football. I think he's underrated by other football clubs. Obviously, Steve Parish came out and sort of said there was no transfer activity for Eze. He was shocked by the lack of interest in him. And that's where I think he's underrated because I think if Chelsea is spending all this money, I'm glad he didn't go to Chelsea, don't get me wrong. But if Chelsea is spending all this money, Man United is spending loads of money. Arsenal have got money in the bank. We know that. How is Eze not going to Arsenal? Linked to Spurs, I think he's better than that. I think he's better than James Maddison. I just don't get it. I think he's being slept on in the transfer world, maybe not in the footballing world. I think that's fair to say. Down the middle, strikers, Diogo Jota, I think is criminally slept on. People slag off his injuries, which I think is always unfair. Anytime he's playing football, he scores goals. He's a danger man. He's a 1 in 2 since he joined Liverpool. Great for Wolves as well. He's got great pace. He links up play better than I think a lot of people give him credit for. I think he's very underrated. And I have to do Erling Haaland, underrated. I know it's outrageous. Highest score in the Premier League ever in a single season. He's approaching... Well, he's got every record you could ever imagine in the Premier League goal scoring statistics. But people still slag him off. People still call him a League 2 player. People still think that he's playing at City and I'd score 20 goals for City. I think it's so disrespectful how he's talked about in the football world. And maybe it's because he's playing for the best side. When I was a kid, I used to disrespect Arsenal players when we talk about Man United players because they were just doing well. And you don't want them to do well. And you want to kind of talk them down. In this country, we're good at we don't want anyone to be too good. And Erling Haaland is too good. And we sort of say his link-up plays rubbish or he's not a joy to watch. It doesn't matter. You have to respect his athletic standards being at the highest of the sport in his position currently in the world. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like we're watching the Olympics. Like, you have to respect whoever wins the gold in whatever competition, whether it's shot put, tennis, 100 meters. And we don't give Erling Haaland this kind of sporting or athletic credence that I think he deserves, and it's not fair. He's far better. His first touch is far better than people give him credit for. His link-up play, his leadership. Yes, he hasn't got that goal in a final yet in England. He's been here 2 years. Henry was in England for what, 10 years, and he never got a cup final goal for Arsenal. Multiple FA Cup finals, a Champions League final. He never scored in either. So we have to be very careful. It's hard to score goals in finals. Finals are usually won by 1 or 2 goals or penalties. It's not easy. Erling Haaland is completely disrespected by the footballing world, and I've put him in my 11. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very, very soon.